undermining the overall security picture. The results of a penetration test must support the overall security picture for the business. The end product of the penetration test should not only reveal system insecurities but also include solutions to eliminate the security vulnerabilities. This is the primary factor that makes the penetration test different from a simple system audit. A penetration test verifies and solves. An audit simply reports as is. Part of a penetration test requires procedures that are designed to remediate the vulnerabilities revealed during the testing process. This means that the results of that penetration test must be fully released to the client. The penetration tester must expect that part of their job is to be involved in the system repair process to some degree. In some circumstances, the problems lie in the enforcement of existing information security policy. If that is the case, this information belongs in the penetration test reports. Other required results include updating system patches and software releases. Regardless of the issues, they all require throughout documentation after the completion of the penetration test. With this kind of sensitive information, it is imperative that the report receives ample protection. It must be handled in a very sensitive manner. If this information fell into the hands of a dishonest penetration tester, or even worse, a hacker, it would mean the disaster for the company. Therefore, the penetration tester must represent the highest of ethical values. They must properly treat this data in a manner that secures its confidentiality and serves the customer. Providing a false sense of security. Should you ever? You just completed a penetration test that was very positive. You could not find any way to compromise or gain access to your client's system. Because of these results, you joyfully communicate to your client that they are absolutely secure. Can you really tell a client that they are utterly secure after a penetration test? Is this morally acceptable on any terms? Being conservative, it is never appropriate to tell a client that due to penetration test results, their systems are completely secure. There is no such thing as completely secure information system. It does not exist. This is a sure sign that you do not know what you are talking about. Being liberal, while you may have been overzealous in communicating to your client that their systems are secure, you have done nothing wrong ethically. To the best of your knowledge, they are secure. Maybe that would have been a better way to word your report to the client. Because all systems are vulnerable, communicating absolute security of information systems as a result of a penetration test is a mistake. It is a moral mistake. It is if your clients believes you. All penetration tests are only good for the exact configuration that was tested. New vulnerabilities are being discovered every week, and there is also the problem of the zero-day attack, where the exploit exists and the attack knows how to use it, but it is not yet known to the security community. Providing limited results never a good idea. When you perform a penetration test, you optimize the work so that you can later change additional fees for more information on the test. Therefore, you only give the client the results of the penetration test. You do not provide enough detail that will enable them to reproduce the problem or fix it. You only provide that additional information if they pay you additional money. Is it ethically appropriate to withhold information from a penetration test to assume additional financial rewards? Being conservative, it is dangerous and unethical to withhold information from a penetration test. While you are withholding information, attackers have the precious time they need to penetrate the client's information system. This does not even take into account the ethics of setting up a penetration test to drain money out of a business for answers to that very test. All aspects of this issue are unethical. Being liberal, you have the right to handle business any way you like to maximize your profit as an IT professional. You do not breach any issues of ethics for profit by withholding additional information beyond the initial scope of the test. However, it is dangerous for the company to not be fully aware of how to remediate a problem as quickly as possible. You optimize the work so that you can later charge additional fees for more information on the test. So you do not provide enough detail that will enable them to reproduce the problems or fix it. Is it ethically appropriate to withhold information from a penetration test to assume additional financial rewards? Both points of view indicate that it is best to communicate penetration test results and remediation strategies as quickly as possible to protect your client from unnecessary attack. You should provide remediation information if you have it, whether you charge extra money or such results or not. Keep in mind that almost anyone can acquire a recipe for a cake, but not everyone can bake the cake. Give them the remediation recipe, and if their system administrators cannot fix the problems, your client can pay you to the job. Be careful when bidding on the job. Remediation is a manual process and can be complex and time consuming. Failing to provide the full picture, not in your best interest. When you perform a penetration test, you want the company to feel secure because they pay a lot of money for your services. At the completion of your services, you do not explain to the company that a penetration test is only a small view into certain aspects of the company's total security risk. Are you ethically required to communicate the scope of a penetration test within the big picture of corporate security risk? Being conservative, you must communicate all aspects of the overall security picture to the client. Failing to do is so unethical. You should communicate that the penetration test is only part of the overall assessment when determining a secure corporate environment. Penetration testing is an important part of determining overall security, but not everything. Being liberal, it is not your obligation as a penetration tester to address the overall corporate security of an organization. You must address the scope of the penetration test. Very few people are qualified to address all aspects of corporate security. This is an unrealistic expectation, not a moral one. The penetration test goes bad. Are you responsible? You perform a penetration test and clearly identify system weaknesses in the company's IT infrastructure. Because you are performing a penetration test, you attempt to exploit those weaknesses with a third party security penetration tool. You know there are risks involved when you exploit known system vulnerabilities. However, you go ahead and do it as a part of the test. Consequently, major damage occurs to the production network, which takes the business down for the day. Does the company have the right to hold you ethically accountable for this damage, or were you just performing your proper job function? Being conservative, you should be able to predict to some degree how third party tools will interact with a known vulnerability. In addition, since these tools are also available to hackers, they can develop their attacks around the technology of the third party tools. Alternatively, in some cases, you must use the tools to trigger problems or openings within the system. Since you did not pay attention to the potential consequences of using the tools, you are partially at fault ethically. You generated more damage to the system by running third party tool. Being liberal, you did your job to the best of your ability. You were hired to perform a penetration test. You did the test as the results where the company has a serious problems. This is not your fault and you should not be held responsible for these problems. It should be common knowledge that whatever issues arise during the penetration test are not the fault of the tester but the vulnerability of the system. Follow this philosophy for all relatively similar circumstances unless there is a gross negligence on the part of the penetration tester. You clearly identify the system weaknesses in the company's IT infrastructure, so you attempt to exploit those weaknesses with a third party security penetration tool. Does the company have the right to hold you ethically accountable for this damage, or are you just performing your proper job function? The client must expect that penetration testing is a highly intrusive process that has the potential to result in destruction to the system under the testing regimen. However, a qualified penetration tester must be able to control to some degree to the flow of the test so that it is not overly destructive. This is not an easy job. When a tester utilizes third-party tools, there is always the risk of not being able to control those tools in a vulnerable penetration environment. You must use special care when using third-party tools in the production of environment or in a system that directly affects the other clients or business partnerships. Before you ever put yourself in such a situation, make sure the rules of engagement, what is permissible and what is not, are clearly stated. Testing non-clients. It is quite common for penetration testers and wannabes to perform penetration tests to varying degrees on potential clients. This occurs when the penetration tester pokes around a potential client's website looking for vulnerabilities. They then take the results of the modified penetration test and present them to the prospective client. This is a form of self-promotion and marketing that they hope will inspire the client to hire them to perform a full penetration test. Chasing the web ambulance, bad for your reputation. Your penetration team finds a vulnerability on a website just by poking around the site. The company that owns the site is not a client of yours. Do you tell the website company who you are and that you have discovered a vulnerability? Or do you offer to assist them with the vulnerability by offering them a full penetration test? Being conservative, you should definitely inform the company of the system vulnerability. You do not need to provide them with the full fixed information, but give them a chance to address this weakness and tell them how you looked at it. Sign the email with your name, title, and company name, but do not push your services onto the prospective client. If the client appreciates the information and does not feel you have been intrusive in your actions with checking out their website, they will call you for follow-up services. If you try to push your services on the company, they may suspect you of creating any existing problems they already possess. If you discover the vulnerability in an innocent manner, offer to fix it for free. If you ask for money to fix the problem, you may, but depending on the circumstances, be bordering extortion or blackmail. You may not feel this is true, but the potential client may read your actions this way. Being liberal, since you did not cause the security flaw but are helping them to discover problems, you have every right to offer your services for pay. Why not? This is an appropriate action under the circumstances. If the potential client misreads you, they are in the wrong ethically, not you. Just let them know who you are, what you do, and how much your services cost. They already know how good you are from what you discovered without formal access to their site. This is not chasing an ambulance. The only way this situation falls into an ethical position is if you found the security vulnerability and then directly exploited it to bring the issue to their attention. Then you have crossed over the line and done something unethical. Would you tell the company who you are and that you have discovered a vulnerability? Would you offer to assist them with the vulnerability by offering them a full penetration test? The key to this ethical issue is the difference between finding a vulnerability when using a website versus poking around technically to discover a vulnerability. If you find a problem when you are using a website, all of the actions you take after that point, whether to offer your services for a fee or for free, are ethical. However, if you directly invade the privacy of a potential client and hack to some degree into their website, all actions after that point are unethical, even if you offer to fix the problems for free. Using a site as a customer is completely legitimate. Hacking into a site to determine security weaknesses so that you can get a job is just plain wrong and aggressive behavior. Think about it from the site owner's point of view. Someone posts a little too far into your site and can access customer credit card information. They write you and tell you they can fix this problem they found for a fee. Most website administrators will first focus on the fact that someone just obtained access to customer credit card numbers.